Hey there, folks. It's me, your friendly neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. You know, I've said it before. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I'm making this particular video in response to a lot of questions and a lot of statements and a lot of people just expressing themselves, both in the comments on YouTube as well as some of the statements and the comments and the responses that I read on Facebook. And there's a lot of people that are still so uncertain whether or not they're going to be in the rapture, and a lot of people that are praying and asking for prayer, and that's a good thing. But they're asking prayer for their families and their friends, and they're so uncertain, and a lot of them seem really stressed out because they believe that the people taken up in the rapture is a very limited amount, and this video basically is to let you know that. Our Heavenly Father and Jesus, they're very merciful, and they're very gracious. They're full of compassion, and they're full of love, and they're full of understanding what every single human person has to go through. Because to begin with, we humans didn't ask to be born. We humans didn't ask to be born in the particular family that we were born into. We didn't ask to be born with the sin nature that we all have, that we all struggle against. We didn't ask to be born in the financial environment that we grew up in. Some of us grew up in a well-to-do family, and some of us grew up in a poor family. Some of us grew up without a family, without a mom or dad, or with just a mom or with just a dad, single-parent families, and it's created all kinds of struggles in our lives, and that creates all kinds of doubts in our minds, because we're dealing with the sin nature passed down from our parents. We're dealing with the thorns in our sides that we have to live with and struggle against. We're dealing with the Paul syndrome, as I like to call it, as believers have to go through, and that being the things that I want to do, that I know I should be doing, I don't do, and the things that I know I'm not supposed to be doing, that I do. That's part of our sin nature. Those are parts of the crosses that we have to bear, and because we have to deal with those things every day. For a lot of us, especially the new Christians, especially the baby Christians, they have that doubt as to whether or not they're going to make it in the rapture. So I'm hoping this particular video will put a lot of minds at ease and put to rest any doubt, because what I'm going to be going through is what I've seen in my rapture dream. And the rapture dream that I had was about 2 years ago. I reposted it a couple of months, so if you look back in the past videos, you can see the repost, or if you go back to 2 years, you can see the original posting of it. Because that day that I had it, I posted it like within the hour. It was so vibrant, so cool. And then the very next day, I drew some pictures of what I saw in the dream, and I'll show you them right now for you new subscribers that haven't seen it. In the dream, I was with some friends out on the front lawn, or inside the house, and we heard this great big huge rumbling, almost sounding like thunderous jets flying overhead. And then we all ran outside to the front yard, and this is what I saw. I saw these pillars of smoke just streaking across the sky, and they looked like somebody was in control of them, because there wasn't just the two, there was a whole bunch of them. They were going in all sorts of different directions, so they looked like they were under control. And then in the front lawn, I looked out across the street, and I could see all these neighbors. They were all running out too, and these pillars of clouds, these whirlwinds, as they turn out to be. They were shooting across the sky, and these little sparklings, they were just shooting around. They were as bright as a camera flash, except they weren't temporary, and they didn't burn your eyes, but they were flying all over the place. There were just tons and tons of them. And in the front lawn, there was a little kid beside me, a little girl, and she was reaching up trying to touch these things, and these sparklings. They looked like they had consciousness, because they looked like they were exploring everything, and they were just going all over the place. And then I looked towards the downtown core, and this is what I saw. I saw over top the city Jesus and the whole rapture cloud. There was more of these whirlwinds, and there's tons of sparklings all over the place, just flying all over, just enjoying themselves. And that's basically what I'm going to be getting into now. Okay, to start off with, you know that I've seen the rapture cloud, a vision of the rapture cloud, and it comes out of the portal in heaven, and then it surrounds the earth. And this is all the raptured people inside the cloud. These are the whirlwinds that go out and they strike the ground. And they go out ahead of the rapture cloud. And like I said, they strike the ground, and they're kind of a forewarning, because they're about 10 miles ahead of the actual rapture cloud. So they make the noise, people run out, and they look in the distance, and they see the rapture cloud. And those who are going to be raptured, their bodies will change, and they will be caught up in the air. They will be joining the sparklings and all the other 5 kinds of lights that I've seen in the rapture cloud, both in visions and in the dream. And those 5 kinds of lights, the brightest ones, of course, would be Jesus, Gabriel, and Michael, as they ride out in front. And then there's also the lights come from all the raptured people, from the bride of Christ, those servants of the Lord that are raptured. And then there's the angels themselves. They'll be accompanying Jesus as they ride through the clouds. They have a different kind of light. And then there's the light from the other flock, and that's what I'll be getting into mostly today. And then there's also the lights from the sparklings. Those are those little sparkling things that were flying all over the place. And I'll get into that in a sec too. But on the day of the rapture, when you hear the trumpet, that's when the first group are going to be raptured, and that's when the dead in Christ rise. So if you're standing near a cemetery, you're going to see the ground explode open with light, not with dirt. It's not going to fling dirt everywhere, but this light is going to explode from the ground, and then you'll see this body rise, this perfected, regenerated, raptured body, and then you'll see the soul streak down from heaven, and the soul will rejoin their body, and a person that has died, that has been raptured from Adam and Eve onward, all those people that are going to be up in heaven, they'll have their bodies raptured. The Lord will reassemble all their molecules and all their atoms and all the quantum nature that made up that particular body to begin with. And it'll be regenerated, it'll be raptured, it'll be resurrected. So the dead in Christ will rise first. And then you who are alive, and I'll just digress a bit. I did another video on this, on the vision of the raptured body, and it's really cool. But when the rapture actually happens, from that moment on, when you hear the trumpet and you feel your body start to change, you're going to be stepping out of time and out of space and into eternity. And just to give you a little, a short little spiel of what I'm talking about. If there's an unsaved person beside you, what they will see is that your body changing instantly, just like that, in the twinkling of an eye. But what will happen to you is as soon as your body starts to change, again, you'll be stepping out of time and space, and you'll be stepping into eternity. Which means, if you wanted to, you could look down at your hands, down at your fingers, and what you'll see, these little tiny stars appearing, one after the other. And that is the Lord changing your quantum nature, changing your atomic structure, changing all the molecules in your body, changing all the cells, changing them from corruptible matter to incorruptible matter. And you can take as much time to watch the change as you want. When I saw this vision in real life, I saw these stars on my fingers, and they just grew. And I knew that in real life, what would be happening is you would see these little tiny stars grow, and they would encompass your whole body, and eventually you would be shining as bright as the noonday sun, as all your molecules change. And again, since you're in eternity, if you wanted to, that whole experience could take 60 seconds. It could take 5 minutes. You can watch the whole change take place in what seems like 10 minutes. But that's 10 minutes of eternal time, which is only a split second of real earth time. So what to you would seem like a change, watching this glorious change in 10 minutes, to the person standing beside you in real life on the earth, you've changed in just a second. So that'll be the difference between earth time and eternity time. So when the rapture does actually happen, you can take your time and enjoy it, or you can just let the thing happen in an instant. There's a whole nother spiel that I could get into, and maybe I'll make another video on that, on what happens during the rapture hour. But for now, this particular video is about putting everyone's mind to ease about their families and their friends and everybody that they prayed for. Now, I've talked about before, you've heard me talk about Jesus and his main flock and Jesus and his other flock. The other flock will also be raptured too, and I will get into that in just a sec as to what people consist of the other flock. Jesus and the other flock is what Enoch confirms. I did another video on that, about Enoch confirming the rapture when he saw it and when he wrote about it. And Enoch calls the raptured people the elect and the righteous. And he saw the elect and the righteous turn into light and rise up off the ground, away from the troubled earth. So Enoch saw the rapture as well. And if you're one of those Christians that don't believe in the book of Enoch, well, that's fine. I'm not trying to convince you. And Enoch has been mentioned a few times in the Bible. So if the Bible itself endorses Enoch, well, then I personally respect the book of Enoch and the visions that he saw and everything that he wrote about, because he basically wrote the whole Bible. His first book basically talks about mankind from beginning to end. It talks about the end times. It talks about the tribulation period. It talks about the battle with Satan and people and the history of the earth. It's all there in the book of Enoch. Let's get into the other flock, because the other flock also consists of your family members that have been consecrated and sanctified, because you have you've dedicated them to the Lord. You've given them to the Lord. So they have been made holy. They've been consecrated as a holy object. They've been sanctified as a righteous object. And so they too will be raptured. But as part of the other flock will not be getting the same rewards as those in the main flock, as you servants of the Lord. You servants of the Lord, because you've committed your life to him. You're fulfilling the Great Commission. You're sharing the gospel. You're being Jesus' hands and feet down here. You are sending up for yourself in heaven all these treasures, especially when people persecute you or mock you or make fun of you. Again, that kind of persecution is sending treasures ahead. So you servants of the Lord, you'll be getting your mansions, you'll be getting your glorious robes, you'll be getting your crowns, you'll be getting your treasures, your rewards, and your gifts, and so many other things for your dedicated life. Whereas those in the other flock, all they will be getting is a robe of salvation. And they will be more than thankful for that, because they will be pulled out of the way of the tribulation and the enemy and the horrors that are going to come after the rapture. They will be missing that because you have been praying for them, because they've been sanctified, they've been made holy, thanks to your prayers and your love and your commitment to them and to the Lord. Just because you've been praying for your family members, it doesn't mean every single family member is going to get raptured, because okay, you don't have to worry about your children. Your small children, yes, they're going to be raptured for sure, because they're part of the other flock. I'm talking about the adult children, or the adult siblings. because the Lord knows their hearts. The Lord knows the goodness of every single human being. And there are some family members that have spoken out against God, and they've expressed their feelings about the Bible and the rapture and Jesus. So it just may take for some family members having to go through the tribulation to realize that their sibling was right, that there really is a rapture, that there really is a heaven. And so the Holy Spirit will speak to them through the tribulation, and eventually they will have to become a martyr, but eventually they will get into heaven too. But for the most part, our siblings, we know they're good people, and the Lord knows that they're good people, because there are a lot of people in the other flock that the Bible calls, and what Jesus talks about. Jesus talks about the people that have the law of God written on their hearts. And that goes from Adam and Eve onwards. It doesn't matter what century they lived in. It doesn't matter what continent they lived on. It doesn't matter what country they lived in or what village they were a part of. Jesus knows the good people from the bad people. Jesus knows the evil people from the righteous people. And he knows their hearts, and he's going to have mercy on them. And all those people from Adam and Eve onward, your family members that have really good hearts and really good spirits, they're going to be part of the other flock. And even God himself lays down precedents and lays down the final word as to who gets raptured or who gets to heaven, because God himself said, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So whoever God says is going to be raptured is going to be raptured. Whoever Jesus determines is good enough to be raptured is going to be raptured. We don't know, and we can't say, and we don't have the final say. The best that we can do is pray for our family and friends, and pray for the lost and the hurting out there. So part of the other flock are the consecrated and the sanctified, as well as those with the law of God written on their heart. And there's also the poor in spirit and the children. Because if you remember what Jesus was talking about on the Sermon on the Mount and what he's talked about when it comes to children, he says that the poor in spirit and the children, heaven belongs to them. So when the time comes for the rapture, for the other cloud, the poor in spirit will be taken up as well as all the children, up to the age of accountability. There are some children that already want to do grown-up stuff, and they can give an account for their own actions. But most children can't. Most children are innocent, even when they do dumb and stupid stuff. They have no idea what they're really doing, and they really can't give an account for their actions. So the Lord is going to have mercy on the children as well, up to the age of accountability. And the poor in spirit. Who are the poor in spirit? The poor in spirit are all those people around the world that are living in a situation in a country that doesn't look after them, that has ended up making them suffer. They're the ones that are starving to death in the third world countries. God is not going to leave them behind, because in their own ways they've been crying out to the Lord. They've been asking for help. So when the time comes, they're going to be raptured. They're going to be part of the other flock, as well as those who are destitute, the extremely poor people that they just have no resources, and in their own way they're crying out to God. So when the time comes, the Lord is going to pull them out of their poverty and take them to heaven, and that's something even Enoch talks about as well. As well as the wrongfully imprisoned. There's a lot of people that have been thrown in jail. They've had their freedom taken away, and in their own way they're crying out to the Lord. And because their freedom has been stripped, the Lord's going to have mercy on them, and they're going to be part of the other flock. They're going to be taken. As well as the kidnapped and the enslaved. There's a lot of people in North America that have had their freedom stripped away, and sadly they've just been victims of evil people. They've been, I hate to think about it, they've been kidnapped, they've been chained up in somebody's basement or chained up in some cabin in the woods somewhere. It's just, this whole world is just so many evil people in it. It's just, and that's why I believe the rapture is going to be happening sooner rather than later, because the amount of people that are getting saved, the amount of people that are getting into heaven, is about equal with the amount of people that are turning into the ways of darkness, into the God haters, into the wicked and the evil. But for now, those who've had their freedom stripped from them, the imprisoned and the enslaved and the kidnapped, the Lord's going to have mercy on them, because I'm sure in their own ways they are crying out to God to be released. So on the day of the rapture, they're going to be taken. And also part of the other flock would be the physically and mentally challenged, those who are at the old school word, the mentally retarded or the physically retarded. The Lord is going to have mercy on them. He's not going to leave them behind to be tortured by the enemy, to be slaughtered by the enemy, because they're in a situation that they don't fully understand. They don't understand evil. They're just existing. And there's a lot of people that are trapped in bodies that are they're physically trapped. They're quadriplegic. They're paraplegic. They were born like that. They became like that. They had no choice in the matter. And in their own ways, they're crying out to God to be released from that freedom, or to be released from that prison and to gain freedom. And the Lord will have mercy on them too. And then there's also those that are bound in wheelchairs. They went through some sort of accident and they wish they could walk again. And again, those particular people, a lot of them are crying out to the Lord, wanting to be released, wanting to enjoy the freedom of being able to move again. So the Lord has heard their prayers and He will have mercy on them. And there's also the shut-ins, those that are forgotten. Those people that are in the hospital, or those people that are in old folks' homes, all the senior citizens that have been abandoned by their families, and they're just sitting there lonely, wishing that they could do something, that they could be of some use. And so I'm sure many of them in their own ways, they're praying to God. So on the day of the rapture, they're going to be included in the other flock. And then lastly are the bedridden, those who are sick, those who have become sick, those who have lost their freedom. And in their own ways, I know they're praying to God and they're wanting to be released from that. So on the day of the rapture, they're going to be given their robe of salvation. And so from what I've seen in my visions, the other flock is going to greatly outnumber the main flock. Oh, hold on one second. Got company. I'll be right back. Okay, where was I? Sorry, I just had a little short visit with my sister. She came by. And again, that's what I'm talking about. I have, or that's what I was talking about with my other video in terms of the family and stuff like that. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And they all gave their lives to the Lord at a very early age, when they were teenagers and preteens. But as they grew up, they kind of wandered away. And it's just my one brother who's been totally taken over by the love of money, and it's caused a lot of division in the family. But my other siblings, my baby brother, he's still in the world, but he prays to God, he recognizes God, and he acknowledges God in his life for helping him straighten out his life. And my sister, she's kind of following the native spirituality, but not wholeheartedly. And my middle brother, he's kind of on the fence. He knows there is a God, but he believes that God can't be accessed by the average human being. So anyway, but they're all great people. They're all good people, but they all have their own challenges in life when it comes to the Lord. And so when it comes to the day of the rapture, because my siblings have been sanctified and consecrated. Oh yeah, and by the way, my mom, we grew up with a single mom, but she remarried. She married a nice, godly Christian guy, and my mom is a strong churchgoer, and she'll be raptured too. So I'm not concerned about her. But my siblings, I believe right now, if the rapture did occur, that 3 of them would be raptured. My one brother, who's given over to the love of money, He knows of the rapture, he knows of the Bible, he knows of end times prophecy, but he has one foot deeply planted in the world. And I believe if the rapture did happen, he would be left behind, and he would have to be one of those people that realizes, okay, I made a mistake, God is real, I know what I have to do in order to get to heaven. So he would end up becoming a martyr, he would end up learning the hard way. And it could be that way with my with my other siblings as well. Because they know the truth, but they've chosen a different way, they may end up having to go through the tribulation period in order to become in order to become a martyr, in order to get into heaven. But at the same hand, on the same hand, God is full of mercy and compassion, and Jesus is the judge of all humanity. And he knows their hearts, and he knows exactly what they have gone through in their lives that brought them to the point where they made the choices that they have. So again, it's not up to me to decide who gets into heaven and who does not. The best that I can do is to pray for them, give them over to the Lord so that they are sanctified and consecrated. And I do pray, and I do feel confident that on the day of the rapture, they will be part of the other flock. And then they won't have a mansion in heaven, so they will get to, or they will have a room in either my mom's mansion or my mansion. I mean that's why mansions, or that's why the Lord has given His servants mansions, because mansions have many rooms, and those rooms can be filled with your friends and your family that have been sanctified and consecrated, because they haven't they don't have a relationship with the Lord, so they didn't send ahead treasures, so they don't get a mansion, but they will get a robe of salvation, and they will get a place to stay in your mansion, in one of the rooms in your mansion. So anyway, I think that's about. Oh yeah, lastly is the fifth thing. To reiterate, the 5 kinds of light in the rapture cloud, that would be Jesus, the brightest, the bride of Christ, you wise virgins, you will shine with a light almost as bright as Jesus. And then the angels, they'll have a different kind of light. It will be just as bright. And the other flock, when they get their raptured bodies in the robes of salvation, they will have a glow too, but it won't be as bright or as glorious as you in the main flock, you of the bride of Christ. And then lastly are the sparklings, those tiny little things that I saw. Show you the drawing again. Show you the drawing again. This is Jesus, of course, and all these other lights. Those are all the people in the rapture cloud as it flies overhead, and these are all the whirlwinds sent out ahead, and of course all the sparklings flying all over the place. And the sparklings are. Okay, I have to digress for just a bit. Acts 2:17 and all the way up to 25, when it talks about how the spirit of prophecy will be poured out on all flesh, and that even God's servants will see bits and pieces of the future. They'll get bits of prophecy. But that Acts 2:17 prophecy speaks a lot about the nations of the world, all flesh, being all nations in all centuries, in all cultures, in all walks of life, all people. They will see bits and pieces of the future. They will see bits and pieces of prophecy that come from the time that we're in and the time during the 1,000 years of peace. And so a lot of people have written about these little sparklings. They've written stories about the sparklings. They've written myths and tales about the sparklings. And now I got to digress just one more time in order to bring about what these sparklings really are. Because if I just told you, it would seem really odd and seem really weird. But we have to set it up. Because there's also where God says, I knew you before I formed you in the womb. Before we were born into a human body, our souls, our personalities existed in heaven with God. We have always been with God. We've always enjoyed God. We've always been a part of heaven. And I believe, if I can digress one more time, I'm always digressing, I know. But I believe that all the human beings, we were around And we saw the rebellion in heaven. We saw Lucifer try and take over. We saw that whole thing. And so as each one of us left heaven and became part of the earth, as we were born into a family, as we were born into a certain country, into a certain century, each one of us carried that latent memory with us. So a lot of people, when we saw Satan rebel, a lot of us looked at that and it repulsed us. It turned us away. We said, "Ooh, I don't ever want to be like that. I don't ever want to be rebellious." And a lot of people, they saw that and say, "Oh, that looks really appealing." So now, when mankind has been born into the womb and onto the earth, some of those people, they saw evil as being really appealing, and some of those people, they saw evil as being really repulsive. And so that separates the two. That separates the good from the bad. It separates the wicked from the righteous. So that's why there are a lot of people that just naturally turn towards evil, because inside their soul, deep down inside their soul, they saw the pride of sin and rebellion in heaven, and that stuck with them. And so, because we all existed in heaven, and we were all given time in a human womb to start to grow our lives. But sadly, there have been a lot of human beings that have been denied that. There have been a lot of aborted children. There have been a lot of children that have been aborted while they were inside the womb, and a lot of children that have been aborted as they came out of the womb. And they're all of various sizes. And because they are living souls, and because they had a physical body on the day of the rapture, those particular souls are going to get their bodies back. And those conscious souls with skills and talents, they're going to be in a raptured, regenerated, resurrected body that is going to be the same size of what they were when they were killed. So there will be living people with tiny little robes living in tiny little fetus-like bodies. And they will be fully conscious, they will be fully aware, they will have their skills, they will have talents, they will have intelligence, but they will be glowing and they will be vibrant and they will be moving all around the place. And all those aborted children, they will get their resurrected bodies back. The souls will come down from heaven and they will inhabit those regenerated, resurrected, raptured bodies. And those are what the sparklings are. Those are what the sparklings are. They're these tiny little people, all zipping all around. They were there in the dream. I saw them zipping around the trees. They were exploring the trees. They were going in and out of all the houses and the neighborhoods. They were exploring the universe during that 1 hour of the rapture, just to see what it was like, just to check out the earth before everybody had to go back into heaven. And so because they were tiny little people, conscious people with full intelligence and skills and talents in tiny little raptured bodies, that is part of the vision that people have been seeing for the past 2,000 years, 3,000 years, and those are the stories that people write. The spirit of prophecy, Acts 2:17 prophecy, showed those people what those little bodies were going to be like. And so mankind wrote little stories of fairy tales and little myths of tiny little pixies, tiny little fairies, tiny little brownies flying here and there, living in the forest, creating their own society. So the spirit of prophecy showed all these people who wrote all these fairy tales that at some point in the future there are going to be tiny little people just flying around and enjoying stuff. And during the 1,000 years of peace, all these little pixie people, they will set up their own little societies in the forest. There will be whole societies of tiny little people just enjoying the 1,000 years of peace. Or if they really wanted to, they could grow from the little tiny little fetus stage that they were at. If it is their will, they can ask the Father and they will grow into a normal, average size human being. Again, nothing that the Father makes goes to waste. So even though these unfortunate children were aborted, their souls went back to heaven, and their souls are going to re-inhabit their bodies on the day of the rapture. So those are the sparklings. Those are the 5 different lights that I've seen in visions and in the dreams of the rapture cloud. And so the skies are going to be very busy and brilliant for that 1 hour during the rapture. The 1 hour that it takes for the cloud to wrap around the planet and to collect everybody. And eventually it's going to encircle the whole planet, and eventually we're going to go back up into heaven. And once the last of the raptured people that enters into the portal into heaven, the portal to heaven is going to be closed, and the earth is going to enter into the time of darkness, the tribulation, the great tribulation, where the wrath of God is poured out on everybody left behind. There will be no innocent people left behind during the tribulation period. The rapture is going to collect all the good, godly, decent, Christ-like people with the law of God written on their hearts. The only people that are going to be left are those foolish virgins, the unwise virgins that should have known better. So during the tribulation period, they are going to have to prove their love to the Lord the hard way. There's a lot of people that are going to realize that there is a God, and in order to get into heaven, they're going to have to become a revelation martyr. They're going to have to be tortured to death, or they're going to have to be beheaded. But apart from those people that will eventually get into heaven, apart from that, the only people left on the earth are going to be the true God haters. They're going to be the most evil, wicked, and perverse people that mankind has ever created. And Satan is just going to have a heyday killing all the God haters, killing all the hardcore atheists that verbally speak out and express hatred towards God and towards the Bible and towards Christians and towards Jesus. So once the rapture cloud leaves, again, there won't be any innocent people left on the earth. They're all going to be basically the spoiled brats of mankind that are going to get the worst whipping that any children could have gotten from their father. And that is that's the wrath of God. That's the tribulation period. That's Satan taking control. And again, to reiterate what I said before, I believe there's going to be at least 3 billion people leaving during the rapture hour. 2 billion of those will be part of the other flock, and the 1 billion will be all the wise virgins, all those that are in the bride of Christ. They will be taken up into heaven to be spared from the evil that's going to be happening. So that means there's going to be 3.5 billion people. 4 billion people, however many we have. If we have 7 billion people on the planet, then there'll be 4 billion people left, and they're all going to be whittled down to the one worlders number. And the one worlders, they want a total population of only 500 million, which means there's going to be a massive slaughtering of the evil, wicked God haters. They're all going to be at each other's throats. The Nephilim's going to be killing and terrorizing them. The demons are going to be killing and terrorizing them. The one-worlders and their martial law are going to be weeding out the population with their sleeper agents, and it's just going to be a horrible time down here on Earth. But those who make it in the rapture cloud, your friends, your family, you're consecrated, you're sanctified, the sparklings, those that are in the other flock, those that have the law of God written on their heart, all the good, godly, Christ-like people are going to be taken up to heaven. And I will do another video on that, on the visions that I've seen in heaven. Or you can check back in my past videos, and you can see the visions and the dreams that I had when I went to heaven and I saw the heavenly city. But for now, that's it. So all you wise virgins out there, all you servants of the Lord, all you watchmen, take heart, and keep praying for your family and your friends and your loved ones and your relatives, because they are consecrated and they are sanctified, and there's a very good chance that God is going to have compassion and mercy on them, and that they will be taken in the other flock when the rapture cloud gets here. So anyway, that's it. So we'll talk to you later. Have fun wherever you are in internet land and YouTube world. Take care, stay in prayer. We will see you in Jesus' kingdom somewhere over there, or I'm sure we're going to see a lot of you up in the air already. Remember, Jesus rules.